everyone. Welcome today. Today I have another fellow hand in hand parenting instructor joining me. So we have Kelly, who I recently had the pleasure and the joy of meeting with and getting together so that we would be able to explore ways in which these beautiful tools that I keep talking about, this idea of connection, all of this wonderful know-how that I feel I've been given as a gift from hand in hand parenting, how it works not only in a particular socio-economic class but across continents, across ideologies, across different people having different ways of beings and cultural context, and it still plays out beautifully. So she's here and she's just joining us. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a nice sunny afternoon for you, I'm assuming.
No, it's actually quite cloudy today. The weather's nice and cool. I'm enjoying it. Get to
Oh,
wear long
nice.
sleeves.
It's raining for us. It's a lovely
Oh,
monsoon day.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
All
so
right.
nice.
So good to see you. So good to be doing this
You too.
across time zones and
Yes,
and cultures, right? Even though you
100.
have told me that where you would you like to share a little bit about you, your community, the work you do, of course, your children, your own
Sure.
parenting journey?
So my background before I had children is Montessori, and the school I taught at, we learned positive discipline and positive, not parenting, but positive guidance because we weren't parenting the kids. And I loved it. I saw it work in a classroom and I just knew that it was for me. I wanted to do that when I had children. And then I fell pregnant and I've got twin boys. They're 4.5 now. And it was a traumatic birth. They were born very early and had quite a long hospital stay. And then we moved across the country when they were about 4 months old. And all of it just set me back emotionally quite fast. And then I was just kind of in survival mode. And then they got to about 18 months, or maybe a bit earlier, where kind of, discipline becomes necessary. You need to start setting your limits because they are curious toddlers. And so I started using my positive discipline techniques that I remembered from school. And it worked, but I was emotionally spent every single day. I couldn't understand why it was so easy to do it in a classroom with other people's children, but with 24 children, now I've only got 2 and I'm finding it a million times more difficult. And I just couldn't figure out why. And then I came across hand in hand parenting and it changed everything for me. The tools were so simple. And what I love about them is just that you can literally apply to any family. It doesn't matter what culture you are, what race you are, what religion you are, what socioeconomic background you come from. It works. It works for all families, and you can adapt it to the values you hold dear in your family. And I think what we're going to talk about today is what really healed me. It quite literally healed me from the postnatal depression that I'd been suffering from for almost 2 years, the anxiety and the dissociation with listening partnership. It's like I had a shell around me that cracked open, pretty much, and I could feel again. And it was just, there's no words to describe it. So that's my story. And now I'm a hand in hand instructor.
Kelly, you're taking me back to that one moment. The first time I actually had the pleasure of meeting Patty in person. And I met her in the office in Palo Alto, which was there then. And I asked her, from our listening partnership, one of the exercises we have is the welcome one, where you stand a few feet apart and you just hold your arms open and you say welcome. And the other person just pours out their feelings as they walk towards you. And Patty welcomed me. And I think she listened to me for maybe half an hour, in which for half an hour I was just bawling, and I barely took 2 steps because it was so overwhelming to go through that. But at the same time, even though there were so many emotions that needed to be unpacked and were getting unpacked over there, because here I was, this Indian girl who'd flown across to meet this person who she'd been admiring the work of, studying and learning and bringing into the family, who's just standing there and saying welcome and meaning it from
Oh,
every fiber of her being, right? And I just remember, just at that moment, how strong it felt to know that over here, it doesn't matter what color my skin is, it doesn't matter what language I speak, it doesn't matter what money I have in my bank balance, it doesn't matter how old my children are, or if I even have children for that matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm single, I'm divorced, separated, happily married or not. I can crumble, and it's okay. And we can all feel this 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 moment. I had a parent who wrote to me today because of the stories we were putting, because of parenting fatigue. She was like, I just needed to hear this today, because we keep there's so many pressures on us which keep telling us, you're not allowed to feel this, you should not feel this, you should have it together, and then there are all these parenting philosophies that keep telling you the words to use, the language to use, the ways to do things. But this is the one place where they're saying, forget everything, we'll talk about it, we have those tools, but first, how are you doing, mama? How you,
exactly.
the person, are doing, right? And
It's the place you
oh,
can come and lay it down in a safe space. You can unpack the all the clutter in your head, the clutter in your heart, the clutter that's stopping you from being the parent you truly want. Because all of us want to be the best parents. No, I don't believe there's a parent in this world that doesn't have the intention of doing the best for their children. And life
exactly.
makes that hard. This world is not set up for parental success. It just isn't.
It
And
isn't.
we need that space to express our hurts and express our disappointments and also celebrate our successes without feeling
Yeah.
like we're or doing the kind of parental humble brag that people talk about. You can openly
Or as
talk
my
about what
daughter says, the
you are
flex,
or
the parental
the
flex.
flex. Exactly.
Clean
Yeah, we can
language,
flex.
the
We can do
flex.
the parental flex. And it's just, you can just truly, truly, truly be you. And sometimes it's with
Yeah,
someone, for me, it actually is more comfortable starting out with someone you don't know, someone who has no attachment to your life or your family, and someone who they are like your sanctuary for that hour or hour and a half or however long it is. It's literally like a sanctuary that the two of you create for the time you're together, and then
yeah,
you can come back to it. It's like magic.
yeah. So we got a hashtag here. Hashtag parental flex.
Parental flex.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, that's so
Absolutely.
great.
So I thought maybe we could share a couple of stories, each of us from our communities, of how listening partnerships have been powerful for ourselves, people we've worked with, so that we're able to explore. I mean, people can go through the posts that we've posted on Trio
Yes.
to see what is a listening partnership. So we're just going with the assumption that it's one-on-one time, adult to adult time that you're sharing, you're switching roles. But I thought maybe we can just deep dive into some of the stories because, um, like for example, in India, when I started to teach the tools, and I first felt very wary of how will listening partnerships be received. because as a cultural context, they're very private people. And of course, initially, the pool of people I had tend to know each other because, you end up calling your friends and your family that please come and learn these tools that I've done. You go into people you know, and it's very hard to create that animosity that we know is so powerful in listening
Yes.
partnerships. So I had a couple of stories I wanted to share, which was
Yes.
one I wanted to share was in the in the slums that I was working, and I was going and teaching these tools there. And there was this one day where I had just finished the class in which we talk about setting limits. And setting limits is hard. Sorry, we had finished stay listening, not setting limits. We had finished stay listening, which is basically where you're listening to your child cry, their big feelings, and not offering a solution. Now, I had this one young mother who actually didn't know her age. And then when we calculated, she had an 8-year-old child and she was barely, possibly 21, 22 years old. And we only know this because we counted how many periods she had had before she got pregnant. And that
Wow.
sort of was the count we needed to use. She was not educated. She came from a very abusive background. So she comes into this class and she's looking very down and very withdrawn, and she's already always looking tired and gaunt. And, I said, "What happened? How are you?" And she said, "No, I've had a really bad week." I said, "Well, what happened? Why has it been so bad?" And she said, "No, you told us to do this listening thing, and I tried to do it with my daughter, but it was very hard for me to hear her upset because she's my life, she's the reason I do anything. And it wasn't easy for me to have her get upset and cry and say mean things to me, but I still listen to her." And they say Didi, like sister, when they talk to community workers. So she said, "Didi, I tried, because you told me to listen." I said, and inside I was like, what is wrong with me? What am I trying to do? This is this white woman's club that I'm trying to bring into India. And, who the hell do I think I am? This privileged person teaching these tools to people. And then she went on to say, "And Didi, my husband came home and he was drunk and he beat me up and he actually took off my clothes and he continued to beat me. And then I called the police and he was arrested. But 2 days later, he came back and I've had fever and I've been sick and just horrors." And Kelly, I remember my hands were shaking and I was really questioning everything that I was doing in that moment. And I searched in my bag because she said she hasn't eaten. And typically I have some chocolate I've confiscated from my kids in my bag. So I'm searching in my bag for something. I was like, I want you to have this right now. And she just held my hand. And she said, "No, Didi." I said, "Why? Why can't I give you a piece of chocolate?" And she said, "Because I don't come to you for that. You're the only person who listens to me."
Oh
And,
my goodness.
it just, I still get teary when I think about that moment. But that's how powerful listening is, where we are come from these completely different backgrounds, where I have this woman sitting in front of me who's struggling with every corner of her being, but all she's asking from me, not even some squished up chocolate in my bag. She's just asking that pure attention, that power of listening. No solutions. No
That is
solutions.
so powerful. And to be that person for someone, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, words can't express. Oh my goodness,
words
that's
can't.
amazing.
Words can't. And it's been like 6 years since that happened, but it still has the power to shake me up every time I remember that experience. And not only did that work between her and me because we were working with a group, two of them became best friends and started providing each other listening partnerships. That's where it makes a ripple
Yeah,
effect, because now it's not me coming
exactly.
in and listening to you and you needing me to be available and show up. It's about you being able to create a community of listeners, of exchange with each other, and you don't need a freaking degree to do it.
Exactly. South Africa, so I'm quite recently qualified. I qualified as an instructor at the end of December, and there's one other instructor in South Africa, and our dream is to make it accessible for everyone. And there's some things we need to put in place to do that, translation of all the materials and putting videos into sound format so that people who don't have computers and things, we can, give them MP3 players that they can listen to and things like that. So that's all at this stage for me a dream. So hearing you talking about, because South Africa is similar to India in the distance between the privileged and those who do not have the privilege is so huge. I think in the world, it's the two countries with the biggest, I can't remember the term for it, but that wealth gap is bigger than anywhere in the world. And I also sit in the same place as you, where I have a lot of privilege, and I acknowledge that. And if there is that discomfort in what do I know, really? Like, I don't know a tenth of what women in my country go through. You read about it, but to actually try and put yourself in their shoes is huge and difficult. And it's that I'm so desperately wanting to give people, so few people can afford therapy. When you look at the population as a percentage, mental health care is inaccessible. It's just not accessible. And the mental health care that is accessible at a government level, it's slow, and people don't bother. Because why? Is it actually helping? And this is free. This is something that you can teach people that they can then go into their communities and teach, and it's free. And that for me is the magic of listening partners, is that you can do it with someone you're comfortable with. You can build these bridges between communities. I can listen to somebody, and yes, I don't know what it's like to walk in their shoes. I don't, but I can listen, and I can give them the space to unpack it. And that for me is what listening partnerships do. And all of the hand-in-hand tools are incredible, obviously, but it's the listening partnerships that allow us to be that parent that can use the other tools.
Exactly.
I could never use the other tools without it. There's no way.
There's no way. Exactly. So I want to share a story about that also, which is, I remember when I was doing certification, and when you're doing certification, you're getting beautiful listening time because you're getting into those group calls, and it's so wonderful. You're just being held and carried. And I remember
every single week.
On this day that I had a beautiful listening time, I was able to listen with my daughter for over 2.5 hours. And now that I think back to it, it was sweaty, it was hot, she was really pushing me, but it just created a switch between us and our relationship. And it was like this reservoir that we had accessed of emotions, and we had just let it flow and wash over us. And the only reason I could be there, listen to her, give her my all without feeling spent and drained. Like, we finished that stay listening process, and she's like, okay, can we play Gold Spot first? It's like this game where you split and you jump. It's like this very physical game, very typical Indian game that children love to play. And we played that. So not only were you listening to your child crying and pushing you and feeling upset, but then you switched over to this role of physically playing something which is challenging you. And you're not feeling finished, because I was not operating on a half tank, because I was feeling so held, because I've had this beautiful listening partnership. I was feeling full. So these challenges that I was being thrown at were feeling, okay, yeah, bring it on. I know how to deal with you. I have the reserve fuel to handle you too, right?
Absolutely. And, we are, I always talk about this backpack analogy. We all have these backpacks.
Yes.
And when you have children, there's suddenly a whole lot more to go in your backpack. And if you're not emptying your own stuff out of the backpack, there's not going to be space for their stuff. And that's where the difficulties come. So for me, hand-in-hand parenting is sitting, listening partnerships is sitting with someone, like unloading this backpack with them until it's empty or as close to empty as possible. And then going out with this empty backpack, like, just bring it to me. I'll take it, you know. And it's so much easier to do that. I've got one story of my own that where a listening partnership was incredibly powerful for me. When the boys were little, sleep, my anxiety was always around sleep. And as they got a little bit older, so it was kind of in the late baby toddler years, I used to get actually angry that they had the audacity to wake me up at night. It was this irrational, as I heard the cry, it was this just like fire of rage that bubbled up inside me. And I would go in with the feeling and be frustrated and upset and try and put them back to sleep and then go back to bed, just, you know, spiraling into this pit of shame. How could I feel that way? My babies need me. My children need me. And here I am, like, angry that they need me. And I took it to my listening partnership and I unpacked it and I cried a bit. And she said, you know, how did you sleep as a baby? How did it go for you? Mm-hmm. And I've got a really good relationship with my mom. And so I sat and we were chatting one day and I said, did you ever need to sleep train me or anything? And she said, you know what? When you were, I think, a few weeks old, she was a new mom. I was her first child. And someone told her she had to let me cry it out. That's the only way I was ever going to sleep. Let her cry, put earplugs in. And my mom managed, not for long. It was probably just a few minutes, maybe half an hour, before she rushed in and she's like, I can't do this. And her telling me that, it's almost like, I don't know, I took it to my listening partnership and I spoke about what she told me. And I cried for myself as the baby, this baby who's like, who needs attachment and needed her mom. And I cried for my mom, being this new mom who was so desperate that, you know, she went against her instincts and trusted someone else and did that. And I was just so sad for her. The compassion I had for her was overwhelming. And I just cried these tears. And from there, the rage disappeared. From that listening partnership, I could get up in the night. And I remember the first time it happened, they woke up and I was excited to go in and cuddle them back to sleep. And lo and behold, going in with that energy, it took 2 minutes because they're like, okay, cool, mom chilled now. You know, they felt they felt me reaching for them on an emotional level rather than resisting them. And it changed everything, absolutely everything. So that for me was a very powerful listening partnership.
It's just something. That's really something, because you're not only talking about how it helped heal you, it was about healing your mom and forgiving her and also feeling compassionate for her, and how like this intergenerational waterfall just got nourished because of that one listening. Yeah, it's just such a magical tool,
Because
any other
my mom obviously felt guilty, and I could tell she felt guilty from the way she told me about it. And when I relayed back to her what happened and how sad I felt for her, I think it must have been a bit of a relief in a way that I wasn't cross, you know, that she'd done that or anything. And that she had doing her best.
Yeah. We have this comments happened to me as a new mom too. I think we believe them because they have done it before and we're still new moms. Yeah.
That's so true.
We do because we're struggling, right, as new moms. And so I had this mom talk to me just 2 days ago. So we both have a hand-in-hand parenting course going on right now, right? We're parallelly there. So this week was stay listening. I taught special time, but we did listening partnerships in our group. And one of the moms, she's a new mom. Her child is 16 months old. And she said, I'm just so tired of people constantly telling me what I should be doing. When she goes into a rant about, her weaning or feeding or sleeping, instead of just having a space where people can listen without judgment, everyone seems to be jumping in with advice.
Mm.
And she just felt like it was so amazing to be in a parenting workshop where she's come to learn, where they're like, yeah, we have nothing to teach you here. We're just here to listen to you. We're not going to tell you whether you should wean your baby, whether you should put her in a cot, whether you should co-sleep. We're not going to tell you any of that, because you know what? We trust you. We believe you know what it is, and we're going to help you
Yes.
with those resistances that are coming in your way. And that's just going to get released because of the
Mm.
unconditional support we provide you.
And I think that's
Where
actually an
else do you
important
get
thing
that?
to say, is that with listening partnerships, you go in with the mindset of the person you're listening to is a good person, they have a good child, and they know what's best for them and their child. And if there's something they're struggling with, we go in with this kind of assuredness that they are going to figure it out. We don't need to help them. We don't need to tell them what to do. There's no advice. There's no judgment. There's no, we just listen and know that they can figure it out. And I think, the confidence in the person that you exude in that goes a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it goes a long way, and it leaves a person feeling confident that even after this course is over, or this person who's this expert is not in the room, I still have it in me to figure it out. I'm not going to keep feeling lost and need somebody to hold me, because what we're doing is we're unlocking that ability to do it for myself all the time,
Yes,
right? And then
exactly.
our ability to listen to our children becomes literally infinite, because now that we have that confidence within ourselves, we find it so much
Mm.
easier to bring it with our children. Yeah.
Yes, and you don't doubt yourself when they're having those massive stay listens where it can get, they can really get angry, and you can go, wow, am I doing the right thing here? That stops happening. That, and the same energy that you take to your listening partnership, you take to your child. They can work this out. I'm going to hold them in the space until they do. I'm not going to tell them what's going to help. Talk them out of this tantrum, whatever it is. I'm going to hold the space until they do. Stay listening, and listening partnerships are very similar in that way, actually.
Absolutely. I feel even to a degree special time, because of that unconditional regard.
Mm-hmm.
It also gets so much into the listening partnership space, because
Yes.
typically we know that even when we do special time with our children, it can lead to tears. And we know when we do adult to adult special time, as you and I have done, that also leads
Mm.
us to tears, because we're just not used to that laser beam focus of attention, right? It overwhelms us many times, and not
Absolutely.
in a bad way, in a good way, where it allows us to really pull out those deep
Mm.
feelings of hurt and upset from deep inside. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What I've also seen is with the tools and listening partnerships in particular, I've actually had some very interesting partnerships come up because of it in the Indian context. I've had people
Mm-hmm.
do it with their household help. I've had people listening to their household help, and it's such a class divide in India, because you have these people who live in the house with you, but they live very parallel, different lives. They don't eat with you, they don't do things with you, they're literally there to serve you. And you
Mm.
don't engage with each other at an emotional or a friendly level. It's very transactional. And I've actually
Mm.
had so many clients who've brought it into that relationship and felt, because these are the househelp who are also helping you take care of your children. We're doing these
Exactly.
tasks for you, but they're integral to the functioning of the family and its mental health. And by using this simple tool, it's like really opening this barrier between them, and it's made some really fantastic things possible for each other, for families, and
That's
just social
amazing.
conditioning.
Yes. I think it's, South Africa is the same in that way. Those those who are privileged enough do have people who help in the house, and a lot of the time they live in, and it's the same as what you described. And it's so important. They are part of the family. They are helping you raise your children. There needs to be that deeper level of connection between you and the person. They're your co-mother. There's no other way to describe it. Very much in South Africa, they nurture your children, and to have that transactional relationship it doesn't work. It can't work. So I love the idea of bringing that tool into that relationship. That's a really, really great idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not mine. It's these wonderful mums who've done these courses, who've gone
Well,
and
thank you.
done that. And yes, thank you to them, and thank you to the fact that you can do that. You can do anything. You can experiment any which way. Someone's asked, I've heard of doing special time with listening partner. How does that work?
I'm reading. I've heard of doing
I've
special time with listening partner. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, so that's Dave asking. Do you want to talk about how we did it on our retreat? It was brilliant.
Why not? Why don't you go for it?
Sorry, I lost you for a second there.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I got a call.
Yes, I can.
I said,
Yes.
why don't you,
Okay.
would you like to share how it, because
I'll
it
share
was
my
amazing.
story.
I think what
So,
we did. Yeah.
yeah, I loved ours. It was very, very special. So for special time, we got told on the retreat that we were going to do special. So our retreat was online, and actually all of my listening partnerships have been online. I've never experienced an in-person listening partnership ever, because there's no one in this area who does it. So that's what I'm trying to change. And so we were told that we're going to do special time with each other. And I was quite apprehensive and like, oh my gosh, how? And they said, it could be whatever you want. It can be you playing an instrument and the person admiring the way you play. It can be you telling whatever you want to do. So they also said it can be something that you've been putting off for a while. And my grandfather passed away a year ago, just over a year ago. And I have a whole box of books that I got from him. And it's been sitting in the corner of my bedroom. I just haven't, every time I came around to opening it, I had an excuse or a reason why I shouldn't. And I would just distract myself. And then when we had our special time, I said, you're going to watch me open my box of books from my grandpa. And the memories, and I laughed and I cried a lot. It was and to have your attention and warmth, even through a screen, it gave me the courage to do that, and the assuredness that I'm going to be okay. The feelings are fine. You're going to have big feelings, and it's beautiful. I'm remembering my grandfather and all the good times, and it was happy and it was sad. It was incredibly special. So that's what we did for special time. It's basically the same as when we do it with our children. I'm here. What do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do. And that's how, exactly the same for adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to share one of the retreat the year before, which is when the pandemic started, and we had our first online retreat. And in India, we had been really locked down, where we hadn't been allowed to step out of our homes. And it had been months before I'd seen a patch of green, because I live in a city in a boxed up apartment, and while we have plants in the building, we don't have like just rolling greens, you know, and we have the seed, but not rolling greens. And I was partnered with someone from Romania, and I was just talking about how I'm missing the greens. And she said, I have a garden. I said, could you, for our listening partnership, continue this call from your garden? And she
Oh my
actually
God.
took me through her garden, and I was in this Romanian sunshine, and she took me through the plants in her garden and talked about stories. And I just felt so special, like someone was opening up their garden, because I was desperate for that. And I told her, I was like, I have to at some point physically visit your Romanian garden because it's meant so much to me. You know, it's the first garden I visited in this pandemic
Oh my
period.
word.
So, yeah, it
Oh,
can be
that made me a
anything.
little bit
It can be
teary.
it can be a box of books, it can be the trees in your garden, it can be literally anything. It's that unconditional regard that we get,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
it's magic when we experience it. It really is.
It really is. It really, really is. Because we don't experience it in day-to-day life. We just don't.
And then
It's a
people
whole
ask me, can
different.
you be listening partners with your spouse? And I say, no. Good for
No.
you if you can, but no.
Tell us the secret because
We would love to know.
there's some more comments here. They've said that's so important. A lot of things that come up as triggering to me, I trace back to someone who looked after me as a child. That's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's for me, I wouldn't choose a friend. I wouldn't choose a close friend as a listening partner. Um, having a new relationship with someone and the basis of your relationship is your listening partnership. I think personally for me, sets me up for more success. I can unpack things more freely.
Because we're not invested, right, in what the other person is choosing. So, say if I'm exploring the idea of going on a holiday to a beach or a mountain, and you're my friend, and you want me to go on the holiday you've already booked for the beach, and I get into a
Yes,
listening partnership with you, you're not going to be neutral.
you've got
There's
an
this deep
agenda.
desire. You have an agenda, and that's the whole thing. Whether it's your partner, whether it's your friend, any close relationship, because you don't know where you're going to go in that particular partnership. You don't know when you start the timer and start exchanging time with each other, where that's going to go. I literally come out of a session feeling I had no idea that was going to come up today or ever, right? So you go
Absolutely.
into this, it's like a mystery box. It just unfolds itself as you allow the emotions to just take you with them. And you need to know that the other person who's listening to you is not going to be attached to any of that, because that's what allows you to go with the emotions. Otherwise, you'll also start navigating. Oh, maybe I don't want to talk about this because it'll make her feel bad.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about this because that's going to trigger him off. And I'm only going to keep it safe in this box. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't be
And
safe
then
in a
it's
listening
not for
partnership.
you. You're doing it for them, which is
Exactly.
just not the point of a listening partnership. That just becomes another normal conversation.
Exactly, exactly. It's just a normal conversation. So yeah, we want to make sure
Yeah.
that we do it with a bunch of strangers. We do, I mean, I know at Trioc we do have a support group for listening partnership for people who have finished doing their course and have learned the tools, and then they're able to join it and use that for their need, for emergency need or regular need or whatever it is that they're looking for. So and I know in the hand in hand parenting community we have a lot
Yes.
of resources for people to explore listening partnerships. So any of you
Yeah, so
watching, listening can just reach out to us and we'll be happy to point you in directions where to get
for
this
sure.
pool of listening
Yeah, you can go.
partners.
I mean, the Facebook, the Hand in Hand Facebook group, the free one that's open to everyone, has a whole thread dedicated to listening partnerships. And this is only my second starter class I'm doing now, but once this one is done, I'm actually going to start doing the same and set up a support group where anyone who's done a course with me or a consult with me can has the option to join once a month for free, where they can unpack a tool or something they're struggling with, but also reach out to each other. My first group, two of the people on our listening partners, for me that was like the biggest success of the group, because it's a concept that makes people quite uncomfortable to start with. No one feels comfortable unloading on other people. You feel like you're burdening them, but listening partnerships don't work like that. And because you're also listening to them, it's a reciprocal thing. So, I mean, when I first started, I was like, oh, do I really have to do this? Can't I just journal? And journaling helps, but not as much as listening partnership.
No. I remember first time saying, oh my God, what will I talk about for 5 minutes? And after 2 minutes saying, okay, I'm done. And
Yeah.
Tosha was my call leader and she's listening to me. She's like, yeah, but we're still here for you. And she made sure I took those 5 minutes, and it wasn't that I came up with something more to share, but for me that extra 3 minutes was just overcoming those hurdles and barriers, that I'm not wasting their time, because
Yes.
that's a big one that comes up, right? Why, at least in this cultural context in India, people struggle with a listening partnership because they feel my emotions are a waste of time for the person who's listening to me. And I feel that becomes something that changes the moment you see the other person still giving you that unconditional regard and saying, I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm happy to listen to you no matter what. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and as
Wonderful.
you say, that laser beam of focus, it jostles you initially. It's like, it's a new feeling, and but yeah, listening partnership, magic
Magic.
for
Yeah.
anyone. You don't have to be a parent. You just have to be a human being, and you'll
Yes,
benefit from it.
absolutely. Any more thoughts, Kelly, that we should talk about today?
Um, Nothing in particular comes to mind for me, other than if people are interested in knowing more about listening partnerships, they must definitely reach out, because I'm considering actually, there is a self-guided listening partnership course that Hand in Hand offers that you can do by yourself online. But I'm actually considering offering like a mentorship, where you buy the course. I'll have a couple of participants, and then I can mentor those people through it. So I am strongly considering that. I'm still thinking about how it's going to work exactly, but if people are interested in that, just reach out. I'd love to hear how much interest there is, and I can gauge it from that as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be wonderful if you're going to be able to do that, because not only will you have the tools, the material from the online course, but you'll also have the presence of a trained
Yeah,
listener who can show you exactly what it feels like, because that's
absolutely.
incomparable, right? You need that example. I needed that Tosha to sit and say, no, I'm going to wait for you for 5 minutes. I'm going to give you your time, and
It's very
it
true.
becomes hard to do that without having somebody experienced to show you
Yeah,
what it can look
and
like,
to reach
because then
out
you can pick it up.
reaching out too. Reaching out as a new listener is quite daunting, because you don't want to ask. Well, you might want to, but it's uncomfortable asking someone who doesn't know what it is, because then you've got to explain it, and you're still new, so you're not sure you're doing it right. And then also reaching out to someone who's experienced can be daunting because you're like, do I listen well enough for them? Am I a good enough listener for them? So I think, yeah, group setting where people are learning together and there is somebody helping them through. Because obviously if you do the starter class, you learn these skills too. But if you're someone, maybe you don't have children, maybe you just want to learn how to listen in this way, let me know. Pop me a DM. Slide into my DM.
Wonderful.
Another youth phrase.
Wonderful. I'm learning this new teen lingo.
Parental Flex is, what is it? Parental Flex. Hashtag Parental Flex. I love that.
My daughter's gonna love it. Every time I say I wanna do a little brag, and she's like, "Cool flex, mom." And I'm like, cringe. I'm embarrassed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such a lovely chat. And I really thank you everyone who joined. I really hope you got something from it. Yeah. Listening partnerships are everything.
They really are. Thank you. Big hug.
Thank you. And I hope you have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend. Big hug.
You too. Bye.
Soon.
See you all, everyone.